Good morning, everyone. Welcome to Blackpurl's Accounting Essentials webinar. Purpose of this meeting is to talk you through the integration that Blackpurl has with accounting platforms like Xero and QuickBooks Online, and answer any questions that might come up. Before we do that, I'd like to introduce a couple of other Blackpurl team members who are on the line with us today. We have two of our customer success team on the line, Sarah LaRose and Tammy McCulloch. I'll go over to Sarah for a quick word about the customer success team at Blackpurl here and what they do.
Hi, everyone. Thanks for joining us today. So we're part of the customer success team, your new points of contact throughout your journey here at Blackpurl. And we're just wanting to make sure that our customer base is happy, and we'd like to always hear your feedback. So just proactively connecting with you guys, and here to assist anything outside of technical support. Over to you, Tammy.
Well said, Sarah. That's exactly what we're here for. The people on this call will be more likely to be connected with Sarah, as she is in a closer time zone, I guess. I'm mostly on the Eastern side, but also here and able and willing to help all of you, because we're a team here, and your success is our business, and that's what we're here for.
Very well said. Thank you so much, Tammy. We also may have a member of our support team joining us today, Kathy Price, whom some of you will know. Kathy, feel free to say hello if you'd like to. Otherwise, it looks like the video is having an issue. Otherwise, absolutely no pressure.
Thank you. Yes, so for all your technical support, that's where Blackpurl support comes into it. So if you've got any issues or anything like that, there's chat there, there's emailing in. There's also a phone function that you can actually subscribe to. So if you want to do that, that's available to you as well. But thank you, Jonathan. Thank you, ladies.
Absolutely.
Thanks, Kathy.
My pleasure. Thanks for being here, Kathy and Sarah and Tammy. Now, for the rest of you, either watching this now or online, here's a brief outline of what we are going to go through today. We're going to go through the basics. What is the accounting integration? Then we're going to look at how it works in practice with a simple part sale. Then we'll go over the mapping, how you determine what accounting entries go where. From there, we'll talk about really where the line is between Blackpurl and your integrated accounting solution, and then go into a period of question and answer today. So let's start out. I'm going to share my screen here today. A lot of you are going to be familiar with what you see here. We're on the Blackpurl dashboard, of course. When you think about what does the Blackpurl accounting integration entail, very specifically, the purpose is to allow you to use a simple and powerful dealership-specific interface for your day-to-day transactions, while allowing those transactions to flow seamlessly and in real time over to your integrated accounting platform. What we believe this does is allows you to have the best of both worlds. That means you get to have a simple, tailored dealership interface, and you get to use the best accounting available. You have two options with Blackpurl, either Xero, which of course is spelled Xero, or QuickBooks Online. Those are your two choices that have very similar level of functionality, in fact, almost identical. The purpose of this accounting integration is to sync your chart of accounts, which is going to live in your accounting integration, to sync that over to Blackpurl, and then to make sure that every transaction you do in Blackpurl transfers over to your accounting without any work on your part. So a couple of things. It's an always-on data connection. That's one of the biggest questions we get. If you finish a transaction, it's going to be over in your accounting in 5 seconds. It's not a push at the end of the day. It's not a batch push of any kind. It's like a hose. Anytime you turn on the spigot, the water flows through. With Blackpurl, anytime you turn on the spigot by completing a transaction, doing a parts count, reconciling an invoice, the spigot turns on and the accounting entries go right through to your accounting application. So that's the basic way it works. As mentioned, your chart of accounts is going to live in your accounting application and sync over to Blackpurl. The mapping process, which we'll go through in a bit, tells Blackpurl where to put your accounting information based on the way you have set up your chart of accounts based on your business. Now, let's talk about this in a little bit more detail about how this works. If I'm in Blackpurl, which you see in front of me, I have, of course, my navigation bar across the top. Probably all of you watching this will be aware. If I want to, say, sell a part, I'm going to hit the sell button. I'm going to tap on sell parts and accessories. And then I can use a barcode scanner. Any barcode scanner will work for this. Wrong org. There we go. I'm going to type a part number in today to bring it up for sale. As I am choosing this gasket, it's going to take me to a part sale. And then once I've gotten this order the way I want it, I'm going to go over to my checkout button to finalize the sale. What I'll do first is select a method of payment, add it, and then I'm going to stop for a second on this demonstration. What I'll do next is to hit this finalize checkout button. This right here is what turns on that tap we were talking about and lets the accounting flow through over to either Xero or QuickBooks. So as soon as I hit finalize checkout, if I'm a layperson at the dealership, my work is done. There's nothing else for me to do. All I need to do is email or print this invoice, send it out to the customer, and we're all set. On the back end, this accounting data has flowed through into our accounting application, and you're going to see line item level detail there for that. So if I were to go into, as I have done, my accounting application, in this case, it's QuickBooks Online, but the integration works almost identically with Xero versus QuickBooks Online. I can show you a bit of Xero later. When I go into the invoice, I'm going to see that line item level detail has been synced. So not only has it sent over the actual accounting entries, like my income, cost of goods sold, inventory adjustment, that has all happened. But it has also created a copy of the invoice in my accounting so I can see line item level detail, part numbers, VINs, serial numbers, etc. What I love about this really is one of the things that makes Blackpurl's integration best in class. By best in class, I mean there's no other option that offers you a better integration with either Xero or QuickBooks Online. Now, I'll pause for questions in just a moment, but I want to finish this transaction. There's a common event that occurs, whether you're in Xero or whether you're in QuickBooks Online, and this is you may have someone make a mistake. What do you mean? Well, what if we closed a unit sale, a bike or a trailer or a caravan or whatever it might be, and there's been a mistake, but all of the accounting's already been sent over to Xero or QuickBooks Online. What do you do about that? Well, traditionally, you would have to go in and do detective work to find those entries, fix them, a lot of manual work. In Blackpurl, not the case. The thing I love about Blackpurl is that whenever you have finalized a transaction, whenever you have determined that there's an error, Blackpurl can smart reverse the accounting push. Our smart reverse feature allows you on any invoice here, you can say I'm on the invoice history subtile, to go and find this undo button. When you mouse over, it will say reopen invoice. And when I tap that, it's going to think for a second. It's going to go check in my Xero to see, can I remove those entries? It's going to look in my Blackpurl to see if anything happened that would make a mess by reopening this order. If we pass the check, you're going to see I have 2 green check marks here. I hit reopen, and it's going to take back that push that it did to my accounting system. So if I were to go back to that very same screen, that top transaction, and I were to refresh, that transaction is going to be gone. It's been sucked back for fixing and resubmission. So if I go back to my Blackpurl, now I can fix this order. I can recheck out. And this time, when I finalize checkout, it's all right. And now I'm going to see in my QuickBooks Online, if I hit refresh, that this invoice has come across. That is yet another reason why making sure that you have this accounting integration in place if you're a Blackpurl customer is so time-saving and significant. We have a question in the chat, a comment from Sarah LaRose, a very good comment. Sarah notes that you need to have proper permissions to be able to reopen an invoice. The reason, thank you, Sarah, why that is so important and why it's so great that she pointed that out is that if you are in your Blackpurl and you are a junior employee, you're a technician, you don't want to run the risk of accidentally reversing things that should not be reversed, right? You don't want your people doing that. So if you plan on using this reverse transaction feature, what you'll want to do is to make sure your permissions are set correctly for all of your team members. You can do that by going to the gear icon, then going to System Settings, going down to User Permissions, where you'll see buckets. And each bucket has its own set of permissions, its own label, and you can put all of your users into one bucket. Let's say I look at my salespeople bucket. There's a little permission here that I'm going to circle on the screen for you in green, and it is reopen finalized invoice. And my recommendation is that you disable this for anyone but your top and most trusted managers. That way your books don't get messed up, frankly. Now, this is a great time. We've gone through the Smart Reverse feature. We've gone through some of the basics, some of the basic nature of the integration. Next is going to be an opportunity to dive in and see exactly how the mapping works and answer any detailed questions. So for the folks who are joining us live today, the floor is going to be open for questions after each section or just as they occur to you. Feel free to speak up when it's Q&A time or to put your question in the chat box, and I'll get to it as we go along. This is a great time to pause. Are there any questions about what we've gone over so far? All right, I'm not seeing any questions, but I am keeping my eye on that chat box. The next section of our conversation today is a closer look at the mapping. Now, how do you know where Blackpurl is going to put accounting entries? That's the question at hand. If we go to the gear icon and then go to System Settings, we have a whole area of the settings designated for accounting integration in the top left. Now, what you'll see is a navigation pane on the right-hand side that walks us through all of the items, such as who is our accounting provider, tax code mapping, clearing accounts, otherwise known as control accounts in Blackpurl, categories, etc. Let's walk through those. So again, as a quick reminder, in Blackpurl, the chart of accounts originates with your Xero or your QuickBooks, and then we would sync it over using the Sync Now button over to Blackpurl, where you can then view it. This is going to be exactly as you have set it up in your accounting application. So that's the first point. The next thing I always like to go through is really the most critical. There's a lot of other details that are really important, but everyone wants to know, how do I know where Blackpurl is putting my accounting entries? Well, I can go to number 7, categories, for a deeper look at that magic behind Blackpurl's just unparalleled customization. This is called categories. Categories are like a train conductor or a Google map that tells Blackpurl where to put the accounting entries as they go over. Here's how it works. Every type of sellable object in Blackpurl has a category assigned to it. For instance, if I wanted to create a new fee that I'm going to begin charging, I might go into that create a fee dialog, and from there, it's going to ask me for a code, a description, a price. And as you're going to see, it's going to ask me for a category. So what's so helpful about that is this means any object I create can be mapped to any GL account I want in your accounting. Here's how a category works. If I were to look at new unit sales and I hit the little pencil, it's going to show me for any new unit I am selling, where does my income entry, which of course in my accounting shows how much money I made from the sale, where do I put my cost of goods sold? As you know, that's what COGS stands for. And inventory, where's my inventory updated? So if we ever changed our chart of accounts and wanted to adjust our mapping, I can come right into the category and choose any GL account in my chart of accounts to send these income entries to. for this category. When it comes to other items, like for instance, over-the-counter part sales, same thing. I hit the pencil icon and it's going to show me that my income is going to 4,200 part sales, cost of goods sold, 5,200, and my inventory is getting updated at 1310 BP parts inventory. So because this mapping is so transparent, so customizable, again, when it comes down to permissions, you want to lock folks who don't need this out of this. But for those who are accountants or financially focused in their job, this is a boon, because if you ever have a question, where do entries go? You just come right into the gear icon, system settings, accounting settings, and categories. Let's stop here. This is one of the key principles behind the accounting application. Are there any questions about how this works day to day? All righty. Well, let's proceed on then. Now, so categories have different types. So if you want to customize your Blackpurl experience, you can do so. For instance, let's just say that I sell caravans now, but I also want to sell motorbikes. I can reflect that in Blackpurl. I just create a new GL account for motorbike sales, cost of goods sold, and inventory. And then I just create a new category. This would be a unit category. And I can type anything I like in the name. Then I can choose any GLs I want it to be mapped to, and I can hit save. Now, what's beautiful about this is once I get this right, and of course, I didn't change the account, so it probably won't let me save. But what's beautiful about this is when I go to, say, unit ordering in Blackpurl, I am able to choose the category. By golly. Oh, there we go. It was thinking duplicate category name. There you go. Okay. What happens is when I go to unit orders, guys, and I go to order from a very specific company, when I go to order a new unit, I can choose the category. So you may have seen this, and now you probably have a deeper sense of where this goes. So what I can do is choose, this is going to be under alternative unit category versus used unit sales or trailer sales or truck sales or whatever the case might be. Fact is, as long as I've chosen the correct category, all the financials related to this unit are going to go the correct places automatically with the Blackpurl accounting integration. And that's the beauty of it. You get to use industry standard software like Xero while having very customizable industry specific software like Blackpurl. Now, there's more to the mapping than just the categories. We've gone over that a bit, and I'd encourage you to talk with your customer success manager if you have more questions about this topic. Control accounts is another key question generating area of the Blackpurl integration. As you know, when you're in Blackpurl and you take a deposit, say toward a special order part or toward a unit, as you know, that is put in a holding tank until you apply it to the deal at checkout. This is, of course, the best way to do it financially, financial accounting wise. And it requires something called a clearing account. This is a temporary holding tank account, of course, where when you take that deposit, it gets put in a temporary holding tank. And then as soon as you apply it and check out, it gets moved out of the tank into income, for lack of a better word, right? So this is where you set up that mapping. Where do customer deposits sit before they're finalized? You're going to see work in progress, labor, inventory, and expense. This has to do with technician labor costing. As you know, Blackpurl can accommodate costing on labor in 3 different ways: by percentage of labor code, fixed amount per labor code, like for a flat rate shop, or the technician's hourly cost, where you can put in the technician's hourly wage equivalent, and then Blackpurl counts every real hour they spent working on a job as cost. That needs to sit somewhere before an invoice is closed. That is what these 2 control accounts are for. Any labor that has been costed out, but the invoice not closed, is going to be sitting here. When it comes to some of the others, like inventory adjustments, store credit accrual, fairly self-explanatory, but inventory adjustments is especially important because one other feature that we're going to get to talk a little bit more about shortly in Blackpurl is part counting. And when you have completed a parts count and you finalize it, If there's a discrepancy, you need to choose a category to put that loss or gain into. And that is controlled by a combination of these control accounts here and the categories that we create. In addition, undeposited funds is a key mapping area. As you can see, Blackpurl allows you to change the undeposited funds account to match the payment method if you want. This particular demo instance, as you can see, has been matched. Afterpay has a different undeposited funds account than, say, financing or check or cash, right? When it comes to these, you can make them all the same or all different. And lastly, I want to go over transaction type. This is one of the biggest secret weapons that Blackpurl offers you. What transaction types do is allow you to, say, on a part sale, choose a different transaction type like lay-by or over-the-counter or internet sales. And not only will Blackpurl separate these transaction types in reporting, so you can see how much you're selling in each transaction type, but it will also allow you to send the accounting entries different places based on the transaction type. It's not just for parts, it's for service as well. Of course, you probably want to record like third-party pay in service differently than customer pay. So this does allow you to, if you were to hit the pencil, to go into the transaction type, I can define the code, the category for parts, and the category for labor separately for each transaction type. Now, I know this is really in depth, and maybe it's dry. I don't know. But for me, it's very interesting because if I wanted to have, for instance, separated out rebuilds in my shop where I'm buying used units, I'm rebuilding them, and then I'm selling them, I can separate that out as a separate transaction type. And I can keep track of those financials separately. But when I'm in Blackpurl and I hit the sell button and I'm going to a service job, say, I can very easily, as a layperson, select what transaction type I want. What I love about this is it's going to, let me get back to it. It's going to allow me to select in one dropdown an option that's going to change where the accounting entries go for the entire life of that unit. You can, of course, change categories at any time, but here's what I mean. Let's switch back over to Blackpurl. If I go over to Blackpurl, I choose a customer unit, and then I choose who is paying for this job. So if it's customer pay, that's going to go somewhere different in my accounting than if it's internal or warranty. That is the beauty of transaction types. So this is showing you your transaction types for service. And when you go to a part sale, you will see it in the top left of the part sale tile. So what I've done here is I've added an oil filter onto this parts and accessories tile, and then I can change the type to be internet, lay-by, over the counter, etc. So that's what's beautiful. It's a lot of flexibility. It's really into the weeds from a certain perspective, but it is one of the reasons why we're able to just unchallengedly claim that it's a best-in-class integration. Are there any other questions today from those who are with us in person related to transaction types? All right, guys. Well, let's get into a few of the finer points, the differences between what Blackpurl handles and what Xero or QuickBooks is going to handle. The best way to think about it is this. Blackpurl is going to be the single source of truth for all of your inventory, for all of your customers, and actually for accounting entries. So what happens is that we use Xero or QuickBooks Online for a few key functions. Financial reporting, if we wanted to see a profit and loss statement, that's going to be accurate up to the minute in my accounting application, right? We're going to use it for financial reports like this. We're going to use it for accounts receivable and payable potentially. And then we're going to use it just to do our day-to-day accounting. The rest of the things that Xero and QuickBooks can do, such as inventory, such as actually doing sales, you're not going to use a lot of that with the Blackpurl integration because Blackpurl is keeping track of your inventory. It's keeping track of all of your sellable objects, your service jobs, your labor codes. And when it's done calculating how much you made, it sends those accounting entries over and it places them directly in your accounting application. So that's a big question we get a lot of times is, where do these things live? And the primary answer to that is your sellable objects all live in Blackpurl. Your financial accounting and financial reporting lives with Xero or QuickBooks. From there, we can talk about the other things that push over as part of the integration. It's not just sales. As I talked a little bit about, if I wanted to order a unit, I can order and receive units in Blackpurl. If I were to do this, I order a unit and then I receive it, it's going to create a payable under the person I buy that unit from in my accounting. If I am going to order and receive parts, first I order, then I receive, and then I get to reconciling my invoice. That is going to create a payable in my accounting as well. So what that means, to be very, very specific, my part orders are not going to create any accounting entries. We're just recording that we are ordering something. When we receive it, that's when the accounting starts to happen. As expected, you need to record that you've now received a certain value of inventory. Once you get to the invoice reconciliation, which thanks to a recent update to Blackpurl from the product team, you can now do steps 2 and 3, receiving and invoicing reconciliation together if you would like. But once you finish that third step, reconciling the invoice, it's going to push over to your QuickBooks or Xero as an accounts payable entry. It's going to be a bill, basically, is what they're called. And when you are in between steps 2 and 3, in between receiving and invoicing, this is probably the single biggest area for better education for Blackpurl customers. That funds, that amount of funds is going to sit in the inventory accrual account. So when you go to your control accounts and you see AP inventory accrual, accounts payable inventory accrual, that is where your parts orders that you have received will sit until you've reconciled their invoice. And then it's going to take it out of there, put it up into accounts payable. So that's the biggest thing to remember, is you've got to remember that ordering and receiving and reconciliation is 3 steps. And after the third step is when it becomes a bill in Xero. All right. The next thing that we can talk about is, again, anytime you take a deposit, it does accounting. And then anytime you do a parts count, it's going to do accounting. So part counts, as you may know in Blackpurl, are tablet friendly. Now, Sarah, I think you mentioned that there is an iPad app that some of our customers are using to be able to scan barcodes of parts as they're going through. Do you happen to recall the name of that app?
It's called Orca Scan, so Orca like the whale.
Okay.
And it's a free app which allows you to scan these with your barcode, with the barcode scanner in the app, and as well to import that all to an Excel. So that way we can actually pull that Excel file into Blackpurl very easily, and then makes your counting a lot quicker.
That's fantastic. Thank you, Orca Scan. I'll not forget that. Okay, here's how the parts counting works, as you may know. You're going to choose one of 3 types. This is also related to accounting. One of the biggest questions we have is, how do you use the parts counting utility? First, of course, you choose a name and date, then you choose a type. It'll give you a little explanation for each of the types. A really nice little touch. Random count means I can just pick any part I want and count it. Cycle count means I use filters to select which parts are being counted, maybe all of a vendor or all of a specific location in my warehouse. Or I can create a list of everything under full inventory. Either way, once I've made my choice, I hit create count, and then I tap on that particular count to begin. What I can do is use Orca Scan, my barcode scanner that I've got from Amazon.com or whatever your retailer is. And then you can go in and start scanning parts in or typing part numbers to count them. It's going to pop up this dialog that shows how many the system shows as being available, what location the system has, so I can actually correct bin locations here. And let's just say that today, instead of 1,475, we only found 1,471. Of course, ridiculous quantities, but you get the idea. I'm going to hit add count. What this is going to do, it's going to think for a second in this case, it's going to add it up and is going to allow me to see how much money I have now need to write off, how much money I've lost due to this count variance is the term Blackpurl uses. Now, normally that's going to be a speedy process, as you know, if you've ever done this. What you'll now see is that if I want to hit finalize count, I'm done. Pretend I only wanted to count this one part. I see that there's an adjustment of $63.20. Now you're going to see where that category word comes up again. I see adjustment category here, and you're going to see that it says stock adjustment. In this case, I only have two, stock adjustment unit transfers, which is for something else. But I could create more categories, things like goodwill or flood loss or whatever I might have in my accounting so that I can track what happened to these particular parts. Then I hit finalize now, and it goes over instantly and in real time over to my accounting, whatever the case might be. Now, when it comes to questions, I'm not seeing any in the chat, but I'd like to open up the floor to verbal questions as we're rapidly approaching our Q&A, but I want to find out if there's any questions about counting or receiving. Alrighty, I guess things are going along nice and smoothly. There's a couple of other things that you'll want to be aware of that are tangentially related to accounting. One of those is the clocking. Don't forget that your cost of goods sold on labor, if you want it to be accurate, you're going to want to go into your job clocking portal, and you're going to want to make sure that your technicians are clocking on and off of your jobs reliably. Blackpurl makes that super easy. If you want to use the payroll clocking, you can also do so right from the top nav bar under payroll clocking. And all of this is going to power reports in Blackpurl. The reason why I mention this payroll clocking is it's important to know because so much of Blackpurl connects so seamlessly to both Xero and QuickBooks Online. It's important to remember that the payroll clocking does not connect to your accounting at all. Does not connect at this time. It might in future. There's some cool things in the works, but as of right now, if you want to see your payroll clocking, what you do is you'd go into reports, reporting, and then you would go into payroll hours. It's going to show you some details. Now, depending on where you're at, again, we talked a little bit about your, where'd I go? Oh, there we go. We talked a little bit about your location making a difference. If you are in a place like Australia, then Xero is going to be able to calculate your taxes because it's very straightforward tax. GST. If you're in a different location, there shouldn't be anyone on this call who's from North America, but as you know, Blackpurl has team members in Australia and Canada, and one of them in the United States. The fact is, if you're in North America, you're going to have your tax calculated by Blackpurl because the taxes are too complicated for regular accounting programs to keep track of all the details. So that is where you're going to have a tax detail report. So just in case this applies to anyone on this call, the tax detail report is always going to show you which taxes, how much you owe, how much you've collected, etc. This is also the final topic here today is what reporting do you use in Blackpurl? What reporting do you use in your accounting application? Here's the way I like to think of it. If it's a traditional financial report, like receivable aging, balance sheet, income statement, that's all going to be in your accounting application. If I want to see how much money I have or made or spent, that's your accounting application. If I want to see specifics, how much profit did I make on a deal? How many of these do I have in stock? Anything related to specific sales is going to be in Blackpurl, specific objects. So again, how you'd get there is you'd go to reporting, reports, and then on the left-hand pane, you're going to see your favorites, any reports that you've customized and starred, and then you are going to see common search right below that. There are some really interesting reports here, such as invoice summary. For those who don't know, this is a very commonly requested report. And what it does is allows you to see how much on each invoice you have made. You can uncover different columns For instance, if I wanted to see the unit total, or I wanted to see the invoice profit and the deal profit, I can add those columns using the Add Column button over on the right. And the nice thing about this is I can sort by whatever I want. I can filter however I want. And if I need to get this out to Excel, I will simply hit the printer icon on the far right, and then I'm going to select the output results and hit apply. That is how I can export to PDF printer or a spreadsheet. For a spreadsheet, I just choose Excel, CSV, and hit apply. So any view I can create, I can not only export, print, but I can save it. And then by hitting the star, add it to my favorites afterwards. So that's the best designation. How do you know where that division is? I like to think of it as financial reporting, reports about how much money I spent and lost. We rely on the accounting application to do that. When it comes to understanding specifics and understanding object-based profitability, that will all be in Blackpurl. Great report, part inventory valuation. One trick, just because we haven't had a lot of questions, usually by this time in the webinar, there's been a lot of questions. And so today you guys get some bonus content from me. If you go to the part inventory valuation, there's a little icon, looks like a pie chart in the top right of your Blackpurl. This is a quick calculator tool. What this allows you to do is see each column that can and should be summed up. You can see the totals right here. So I can see right now in my part inventory valuation, I have about $129,000 worth of parts. And if I wanted to see more totals, I could certainly add more totals. So even though Blackpurl is best known for being simple, easy to use, as you can see, it's very in-depth. If you want to get into the nooks and the crannies, I can get a lot of key information out of this if I'm doing a deep dive on a topic in my dealership. Now, there's a PSA that I've been asked to talk about, and that's for anyone on this webinar who has not yet gone live. Key task as part of going live, please make sure that you enter your opening balances when you go live. We've had a couple of folks forget to do this on their first day of going live, and then there's a whole bunch of fixing and cleaning to be done afterwards. So PSA, if you have not yet gone live, just make sure you enter your opening balances in Xero or QuickBooks before you go live. Next, if you have support questions, people ask, who do I go to for different kinds of questions? To reinforce what Sarah mentioned at the beginning of this conversation today, if you have a technical support question, I am not seeing my accounting entries coming across. I don't know where to find X. That is a great question for support. Support can be reached most rapidly by going to my chat icon and then going to live chat and support. And if I have Premier phone support, by the way, if you don't have it and want it, talk to your customer success manager about upgrading. Premier phone support gives you a number you can dial in and just get an very knowledgeable individual on the phone or a quick call back. Your third option is you always have your customer success manager, but they have a lot of meetings throughout the day, throughout the week. So it's best to plan ahead to talk with them. All right. Well, we get to end early today. Tammy, Sarah, anything that you would like to add today before we finalize our session?
Yes, I was just typing in the chat, but if anyone here thinks of a question after we get off the webinar, please reach out to customersuccess@blackpurl.com and we will do our best to answer. As well, if they come up with other things that we can help, just let us know.
Excellent. Thank you so much for that. I will be displaying on the screen here for a few minutes and mostly for the folks who are joining after the fact. If you can see this, just want to say thank you so much for viewing or attending this Australia-focused Blackpurl Accounting Essentials webinar. Occasionally on these webinars, we get questions that are too nuanced or specific to answer for the general audience here. There were none of those today. Just be sure to keep following our webinar schedule as we'll be having a key webinar each month. You can reach us again at customersuccess@blackpurl.com. We look forward to the next time we chat. Have a great rest of your day.